Good afternoon, everybody. How are you doing? My name's Evie Botello. I'm here with you from Peak Prosperity in our studio here in Massachusetts. Many of you might be wondering, what is a Garden of Evie? Honestly, it's a name that we came up with that we thought would be funny and kind of playful. Um, it sounds sort of biblical, I know, but it's actually just about exploring some other topics here, in addition to gardens, not just the garden outside, but the garden within as well. And I'm here sort of representing the feminine, if you will, talking about the things that I, as a woman, care about, but also connecting with the larger community, I think, in a way that's slightly different from my partner, Chris Martinson, who many of you know has been working really hard in the analysis of what happened with the Trump assassination of late, as well as other topics. And please feel free, if you are so inclined, to stop over at peakprosperity.com. It's a really fabulous website. It's all about becoming more resilient, listening to your intuition, of course, and meeting other people that are like-minded and thinking critically during these really difficult times. So I just want to encourage you to do that if you feel called to. As with most YouTube videos, they get passed around when people like and subscribe. So at the end of this, if you feel like that makes sense for you, please do share this and give it a thumbs up. So welcome. How are you on this Thursday afternoon? It is kind of warm here in Massachusetts. We had a nice dip in the temperatures and it seems like it went up a little bit. And man, I hate being out there when it's that warm. When it gets really humid, I find doing yard work to be intense for me. I don't know if that's from since I had COVID. I just feel like my body has not been quite the same. I lost my sense of smell completely when I had COVID the first time, and it never really came back. And then there are other things that I noticed, something called POTS, which is this blood pressure issue when you stand up. Like, I almost pass out. It's bizarre, but I find that the heat kind of makes that a little bit harder. So for anybody else out there dealing with chronic conditions and trying to continue on with life, you have my respect and condolences too. I know it's not easy, and I know we're all doing the best that we can. Speaking of, part of what I'm doing here is I really would love to open up a dialogue and a conversation to talk with you more about what really matters in this life, in this world, really, because every single day we are bombarded with things from every direction. And excuse me, many of those are important, real aspects of our lives that we need to work with: our family, our kids, our friends, events, life events, and so forth. And another set of them is, what's coming at us from all directions in terms of technology. And I've been sitting with this lately, and I have some thoughts that I wanted to share with you about that. But before I do, I wanted to just say I'm joining you after spending a day with my daughter. She lives in Madison, Connecticut, which is a little ways from me. And I was able to go down and get an Airbnb for a night and just have a girls' day with her. And it was so good. It was really wonderful. And I came back in order to join you for this, which I'm also grateful to have friends that I'm getting to know online, and that you're getting, hopefully having an opportunity to get to know who I am as well. But it was really wonderful to be down there at the ocean with her. She's almost 12, and she feels like she could be going on 37 years old. She's very social and has such a bright mind, and really has a personality that's just so spicy. Maybe it's because she's all her signs are in Scorpio. I don't know. And I wish I had a picture I could share with you at the moment. It would just be more trouble than it's worth trying to pull it up. But maybe sometime in the future I can show you a few pictures. But she's just such an incredible little human being, and I feel so grateful to have her in my life. And the situation is hard too. Her father and I aren't together, and it's just meant that our lives, every single birthday, every single holiday, every event, is just split. And I grew up that way as well. Unfortunately, my parents weren't together either. And I remember that feeling of having My parents talk about going back and forth between our houses because every couple of weeks I would go and see my biological dad and his wife. And I'd be like, oh, you're going to your dad's house or you're at your mom's house. But what was crazy about it, and thinking back, is that nobody was talking about my house. Like, it was their house. It was his house or her house, but it wasn't mine. And I remember how ungrounded I began to feel, in particular, coming into adolescence. And my daughter's almost there herself, and I can feel that like rumbly, things are about to get interesting. And I feel for her. I really feel bad that I didn't do a better job choosing a partner, or that I gave this beautiful blessing of being able to share having a child with somebody, with a person that really didn't deserve it. Her dad, and we just, it's not just that we don't see eye to eye. I just don't feel like he has the integrity that I really needed, and it's just sad. And I'm not the kind of parent that sits there and says anything about him to her, because I feel like it's not my job to be trying to educate her about who her dad is. My experience with him is my experience. She's going to have her own experiences, and hopefully they have a good relationship, because I want that for her. And I don't want to lay the history of whatever happened before on her, because that's not hers to carry either. So I work really hard at that. But today, when I dropped her off, I think it was something about being down in that area. So typically when she comes up to visit us, she'll be here for a weekend every 2 weeks. And she's down there mostly because the school system is really good, supposedly. And so at least it checks out on paper, right? With all the test scores and stuff. So she's not with me or with us on a daily basis. And when she does come here, it's like she adds this lovely presence to our house. And of course I miss her. And every time I walk by her room, I look in there, I miss her, I think of her, I fold her clothes, whatever. I find things around the house that belong to her. But something about being where she is every day without me was really hard. And as I drove away, it's going to make me cry again. As I drove away, I couldn't help it. I just broke down and sobbed. And it wasn't even something I was thinking about. My body was just like, I don't want to leave this person. I want to be with her. I hate that I have to share her, and I can only imagine how it is for her. I know it must be hard. So for all the single parents out there, anybody doing this on their own or in split families, I really commend you. It is so difficult. And in particular, these days, I don't even know where to start. I mean, my daughter ended up getting vaccinated because that's what her dad wanted to do. And I didn't agree with him, and he did it anyway. And now I've been dealing with something I think perhaps some of you might be familiar or have heard about, which I think is it's a phenomenon that's becoming more well known, which is about shedding. And turns out that, when you're around people that are vaccinated, some of us are really sensitive, and we can pick up on that, and our bodies are having to clear out or deal with reactions to the spike protein that's coming from another individual whose body's just cranking these out. And I actually think that's happening with us. And so every time I'm around her, I'm starting noticing that I'm feeling kind of sick, and it's just so unfortunate, but it's hard, isn't it? It's tough. It's tough at this point in history to be trying to hold families together, to be trying to have close and intimate relationships with our friends, with our parents and our siblings and so on. And to have these huge diversions in terms of our belief systems is so painful. It's really hard. And Chris and I both lost a lot of family through this COVID. And I don't even want to say it's a pandemic anymore, because I feel like something else happened. Something happened that was way more potent than just a virus. Because at least a virus, you get it. Your body makes antibodies after you've, had it, and you just move on. But there's something that happened during that period of time that really changed the world. And I didn't realize it then, or else I might have approached some of the interactions I had differently. But it was really tough to have conversations that were data based and logic based. And now, a few years later, I'm so happy that I didn't get vaccinated. I would be ridiculously anxious if I had, a feeling somewhere in my body that I had a blood clot. I would just be worried. And I'm glad I don't have to worry about that. I'm glad that I listened to my intuition about that. But my kids are both vaccinated. My eldest daughter had to get it for college. She wasn't going to be allowed to continue unless she got it. And that was just pressure and manipulation, which makes me so sad for young people. They're just so susceptible. And then my youngest, Aurelia, her dad made that call, but he was in a community where everybody was doing it. And anyway, I shudder to think what might happen if this whole monkeypox thing continues to be blown out of proportion or turns into some kind of gigantic risk. And, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that on YouTube at this point, but hopefully it's not a thing. But I really am not looking forward to what could potentially happen should something like that occur again, because we're already just miles apart, between us and where some other people exist in their beliefs around what happened. And don't even get me started on politics right now in this country. So yeah, I've been feeling kind of down myself lately. I think it's just a question of so much going on at once, and I need to take my own advice and do some better self-care. I started to feel really ungrounded several weeks ago now. I think it was actually the Trump assassination attempt. It wasn't, Chris was also listening to excuse me, videos and stuff like that and analyzing them. And so I probably heard them many more times than the average person as a result of the studio being in our house. But I don't know. Something occurred on that day that, or maybe it was just a realization of where we're at as a country, where we're at as a world. And when I couple that with like whatever ends up on my Twitter news feed, it's just depressing. It's so depressing to hear about the kind of just disease that's happening as a result of these shots, turbo cancers, and on and on and on and on. And what I've been troubled by is just seeing what people are willing to do for power and for money. And I'm trying to find my way through the darkness of that and grope through all sorts of crap, right? There's 80% of what's out there is just garbage. It's either not accurate or not data-based or just not useful to me, at least. And so, I don't know. I find myself really torn about whether or not I want to continue having a social media. I'm not really on there anyway, but to just even look at it it's distressing. Does anybody else feel that way? Does anybody else feel like they kind of are on there because other people are, because your family is, or that's how you get to see pictures of those you love or live far away from, but that you don't feel good after you look at it? I don't know. I just haven't felt great about it. And more I notice that everywhere I go, like if you go out to a restaurant or something, people are just on their phones the whole time. Like they're not looking at each other anymore. I remember on the street when you went to a city and you were walking around, people were looking at you. People would say hi. Like it was shocking. People would say hello. How are you doing? They would smile. Sometimes they'd look away, whatever. But there was just a communication going on. And now we're just all like sucked into this other place. Somebody was telling me that they were starting to feel concerned about their social media or, online AI kind of stuff because they were talking. No, they weren't even talking about something. I think they had been thinking about something. And then several times it's turned out that right before they go to search for it, it's like first line, like AI just knows how their brain works. And I actually think that we're probably way further down this technological sort of tunnel than we realize. And I'm absolutely sure that's true based on what else we probably aren't aware of that we've been truthed around over the years. But I feel like they've mapped out our brains. Like if I don't know if anybody here saw I think it was on Netflix, ironically, but the social what was it called? Anyway, it was about sorry, I can't remember the name, but it was about how they look at your pupils and how they dilate and they can tell when you're aroused by something you're reading and if you like it. So you can't even fake whether or not you're interested in something. They will know. And they take all that data and of course they sell it. So all of the free apps and stuff like that, as I'm sure you're well aware, when you say I accept and you're like, wow, I get to use this thing and I don't have to pay money for it. Great. You are the product and they're just harvesting and selling all of your data, all of it, like all the data within the app itself, but who knows what other biometrics and stuff like that. I was shocked because I went to the store and it was a store I'd never been to. And I had Chris's credit card with me and I was gonna put whatever I was purchasing on the credit card. And then they asked me if I wanted to be emailed a receipt. And I'm looking at them kind of incredulously because they don't have my email address. How could they have my email address? Like, I don't know these people. I've never been in the store before. And it's not like I had an online account or anything like that. And apparently, it must have been that my email address is associated with that card in some meaningful way that it showed up at the register. And I don't know. I guess maybe for some people it seems wonderful that things like this exist. And I'm truly grateful for all the ways that it makes my life easier. I am. But I'm also wondering what we're trading it for. Like there's something that is happening in our world right now. There's a way that people have been struggling with life. There are things that have been happening, and I'm not sure that what's going on with social media is just if it's actually good for us or if it's just placating us just enough so we don't go out there and protest and really change things. You know, what if it took us getting off our phones, getting off our couches, and getting out there and doing something differently? Like, what would that look like? And I can't say that I know, but I just sense that there's something way more to being a human than what I'm currently in touch with in my own self. Does anybody else ever feel like that? Like if you were to dream into what you imagine like a full life to look like, that there's so much potential that a human life has, and that maybe in some cases we're not living up to that. And I don't know about you, but that makes me feel really uncomfortable and sort of sad. And I'm increasingly uncomfortable with the level of how they've dialed in most of the apps and programs on the phones to be able to, or computers, to be able to hijack your dopamine, your reward system in your brain. Like that kind of stuff has huge impacts. Because you might think like, oh, well, I don't bring my phone here and I only use it here. But it's not just how often you're using a phone. I think it's that whenever you're not using it, your brain isn't responding to real life sort of stimulus and rewards the same way. It's just the whole reward system gets changed. And so, you know, if you're scrolling on your Instagram feed or something, it gives you a certain rush of feeling good, or when you're bored, it relieves some kind of tension. And then, you know, if your brain gets used to that, then in real life, you don't get that same sort of dopamine or relief when you're having challenges or issues. I just don't like the idea of that. And there's so many unknowns right now. And anyway, food for thought, but it's kind of where my brain's been wandering around, and I get to this point where I feel so tired some days that all I want to do is just not have to make an effort, but my brain's not totally used up. And so I like the idea of being entertained. And, we'll watch a Netflix show or something at night, and I'll knit or something like that while we're watching, or embroider, which has been my latest thing. But but even so, I wonder how much of the ideas that I hold in my mind, the thoughts I have, how much of those are influenced by them and the scripts that they're feeding us. And I grew up in a very Christian family, and we were always, they were always talking about the end times and the mark of the beast and this and that. And I've been waiting for something that triggered that sense in me, like, oh, wow, that's evil over there. Like, whoa. And I think I've met a lot of those sort of things in the recent years, where I can say, yeah, I don't know exactly what God looks like or what the devil looks like, but if I had to guess, like, that over there, that looks a lot like what I would consider evil to look like, or that feels divine. Like, I feel like I can sort of ascertain that a little bit better than I could before, because it's become so dramatic, right? Like, the politics and just the way that even our current administration, whoever's pulling the strings behind it, the choices they're making for our country are not about the people that already live here. They're just not. And if I was devising a way to pull the whole world off of its axis, if this was indeed a spiritual battle and I could get to every person, through this device, I mean, I couldn't think of a better technology to do it. It's perfect. You just import all these thoughts all day long, and some of them are random. They're not necessarily bad. They don't seem evil. Some ladies, dyeing her hair or cutting it at home, or some guys chainsawing. Like, it seems rather, I don't know, benign, but I don't know. I don't know that I'm settled on this, but I don't like it. And it makes me sound, I don't know, I feel silly saying it, because I feel like this is how one gets old, as they start saying things like, back when I was a kid, blah, blah, blah. But truthfully, back when I was a kid, I came of age, right when the internet was sort of being created, and the dial-up was such a nightmare. Like, when I was in college, we still had that Ethernet, blah, blah, blah. It was a pain, but I remember how different it was to not have that in my life every day. And I played outside a lot. I went for hikes all the time. I was always adventuring and finding things to do and hobbies and interests. And I had to make my own world, and I loved that. And there was something cool about it too, because not seeing what everybody else was doing allowed me to follow that inner guidance really easily. And I think that's what I don't like in some ways about social media, is that although you get lots of great ideas from people, it lacks something as well. It takes something from us, I think, in the finding our own way and owning our own way. But I definitely feel really concerned for our young people. I spending time with my daughter in these last couple days, watching what she has to contend with socially. Even if I said, all right, Aurelia, no more, like, you can't be online. And of course I can't control that, because she's not with me most of the time, unfortunately. But if I said, you can't use this, she would be then trying to keep up with peers who that's all they're talking about, So how do you raise a kid who can actually take part in being a part of a community when you're not allowing them to do those things? And I don't have the answer to that either. But I really feel for these young people, and I'm searching my heart and my life to figure out what it is we need to do to help them. Chris and I have been talking for a while about, and we're actively trying to create a place that people can come, and whether it's like an event center or what, I don't know. Um, we need to raise some money for that so that we can get it off the ground and get it kind of operative. But I just feel really strongly that people need a place they can go to remember who they are, where they're not just like Aurelia's, around peers that are feeding her this stuff. So even if she's not watching it, she's getting it secondhand. Like maybe people need a place to come where they can just be with the elements. They can be in a beautiful place and remember why they're here, you know? It seems like it's going to be important in the future, and it's something that Chris and I have been really wanting to do strongly for a long time. And when we purchased this place, the parcel right across the way, it was called Brookside. It used to be like a lodge that people would come to, almost like a spa type place, and people would come from New York City and stay there in the summer, and locals would come and work there. And so many people that I've met have memories of being over there. And so we got together a group of accredited investors and we purchased that property and we own it outright. And we've been trying to figure out how to work with it being a property that's a little bit too big to be residential, but a little bit too small to be commercial. And we're finding our way through that, finding a path to how we can make that come alive. But I want to feel that magic again of, sitting around a campfire with a whole bunch of wonderful people and listening to their stories, playing music together, sharing meals together. Just that like juicy core of life. Like this is what it's all about. This is why we do what we do. Or this makes life meaningful. And I've been thinking about that as we approach our wedding, which is coming up in October. I'd really love to have like a ritual that I do before the event with women and just come together and create something beautiful. And we have a waterfall that's just up the way. And I'm still dreaming on it, but I want to invite some of my closer friends and just have them come and be with me. And I think I want to light a fire on the rocks right next to the waterfall because the way that the stones are there, there's actually a video that I took right when this show started, when I started doing these, where I gave a tour of that waterfall so you can see it for yourself if you'd like. But it's just incredibly special. And I think it would be amazing to have the light bouncing off. Like if I lit a fire, had a bunch of candles, it would be amazing to have the light bouncing off of that rock. And you just feel kind of held in that space. And the sound of the water, like we could float candles on it and flower petals. I don't know. I'm not sure. That's what comes to my mind when I think of what I want to do before I get married. I'm not really interested in having like a bar crawl or something like that to celebrate getting married. We don't drink anyway, but yeah, I just want to mark the occasion somehow. And I feel like rituals are one of those ways. But I'm curious, what other people do when they have big life events that makes them feel grounded and helps you to remember what it is you're going through. And do you guys ever personalize them and make them your own and do things a little differently because it makes sense and has meaning for you? So yeah, we're going to have the wedding here, and I know we're going to make it special, and it'll have our own flavor, of being that farmhouse chic, just meaningful to us, I think. But anyway, I'm also trying to find meaning around why I'm doing these shows, and I want to find a format that really works well. And it's hard because we live out in the sticks, and maybe there are people listening that have more knowledge about this than we do, but I live out in the sticks and I really want to take you outside with me. Like that's where my passion is. And I'd love to do a live from outside, but I think because we don't have internet, we can't upload. So it's not possible to do that unless we put in a lot more infrastructure, which is okay. We could. But I don't know, I'm curious about how I can best use my gifts to help the world? Like, what does that look like? And who can I be? How can I be of support or help here, and not just be another distraction? I don't want to be a distraction. I want to be helpful. And I'm probably not the world's expert on any one thing. I love so many things that I don't think I've become a master of any of them. And that's okay. But, I would love to bring you outside with me at any rate. And I also would enjoy having more intimate conversations and thinking about maybe having people here to interview them, or, having questions that you might put in the comments, which you're welcome to do, and I'll see them and then answer them. But yeah, I just want to find my tribe of people, because it's hard being in this world. It's hard being, parenting my daughter, as I'm not technically a single parent, but it's hard having a split family. It's hard trying to create a landscape that's full of plenty and bounty and beauty, and to do that without living beside a lot of other like-minded people. And we have a ton of them online, but I think it's time to get more people here physically. Chris and I are working to do that. Here on our parcel, we've got room to create some places where other people could potentially come and build houses, or, be neighbors if they wanted to be, which I think would be awesome. Kind of like an eco village, where people share certain larger things, whether it's an open space or a pond or a piece of equipment. I don't know. But, yeah. Anyway, when I was down at the ocean, I realized how much my soul missed being around that particular flavor of beauty. And we're lucky here to have so many other flavors. We've got the beautiful streams and waterfalls and fields and forests. And just Chris and I the other day were walking around on this really cool piece of land that has old mines from when they used to mine iron ore and emery. And I don't even know what else, but really cool and scary places where it drops down like, I don't even know, 50 feet down into the ground. And some of them have collapsed in, and the air is so cold coming out from where they are, that it feels like you've walked into a walk-in freezer. It's wild. But anyway, I realized that I think whatever we do here, I want to make it beautiful, because I love being around beauty. I want to be around beautiful things, beautiful architecture, beautiful people. Not that they're perfect, but that they are authentic. They are striving to be a better version of who they already are, but they are actively seeking to figure out what their life story is about. So if you're one of those people, drop me a line in the comments, or come over to Peak Prosperity. We also have our, I think the tickets are going to be, the window for them is closing soon, but we have tickets on sale for our yearly seminar. We're going to do it up at Lake Winnipesaukee this year in New Hampshire, and it's going to be amazing. And we'd love to have you there. Anybody that feels called to join us, please do. So I found this poem I wanted to read you real quick. I'm drawn to pieces of writing that make me think. And this is written by somebody from the Navajo tribe. And I once had a teacher that used to talk about this. She'd call it walking in the beauty way. And I'm like, what is that? Like, I didn't fully understand it when I first heard it. And the Wilderness Awareness School and the Vermont Wilderness School, which I was previously associated with, they had Native American elders and such that would come in and teach about various things. And so there was a lot of really great perspective that came from some of those talks. In this poem, I don't know all of its history, but it's talking about living our lives in such a way that we're striving for beauty. We're striving for goodness and wholeness, and with a thought to the next generation to leave things the best way that we can in every stage of our lives. And it really resonated with me, so I hope you like it too. It says, "In beauty may I walk, all day long may I walk. Through the returning seasons may I walk. On the trail marked with pollen may I walk. With grasshoppers about my feet may I walk. With dew about my feet may I walk. With beauty may I walk. With beauty before me may I walk. With beauty behind me may I walk. With beauty above me may I walk. Beauty below me may I walk. With beauty all around me may I walk. In old age wandering on a trail of beauty lively may I walk. In old age wandering on a trail of beauty living again may I walk. It is finished in beauty. It is finished in beauty." Thank you everybody so much for joining me. I'm grateful to have spent this afternoon time with you, and I look forward to having another Thursday afternoon once again. Take good care and have a great week. See you later.